The impossible discovery. The air in the Galactic Council chamber felt thick with disbelief. Ambassador Marcus Kane stood before the assembled representatives of 17 alien species, holding a datapad that contained the most shocking revelation in interstellar history. His weathered hands trembled slightly as he prepared to speak words that would change everything. The Vorthak delegation shittered nervously in their crystalline shells. The towering Zilthrani swayed their tentacled heads in what humans had learned was confusion. Even the ancient keeper of records, a being made of living starlight, dimmed noticeably as Marcus began his presentation. Distinguished delegates, Marcus said, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. 3 months ago, our research vessel Endurance discovered a drifting escape pod near the Centauri Nebula. Inside was a young female, approximately 16 Earth, years old, of unknown species. She appeared humanoid, but possessed characteristics we'd never seen before. The Vorthak Prime Speaker clicked its mandibles impatiently. Ambassador Kane, why do you waste our time with tales of refugees? The galaxy is full of lost souls. Marcus tapped his datapad, and a holographic image appeared above the assembly. The girl in the projection had pale blue skin that seemed shimmer with inner light, silver hair that moved like liquid mercury, and eyes that held the depth of ancient stars. Most striking were the delicate bioluminescent patterns that traced along her arms and face, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. This is Lyra, Marcus continued. She spoke no known language when we found her, but she learned human speech with incredible speed. More importantly, she carries genetic markers that should be impossible. The chamber erupted in multi-species chatter. The keeper of records pulsed brighter, demanding attention. When silence returned, its voice resonated like distant thunder. Explain these impossibilities, human. Marcus swallowed hard. Our DNA analysis shows that Lyra is genetically compatible with human biology, not similar compatible, as if our species were designed to complement each other. But that's not the most shocking part. He paused, knowing his next words would be met with ridicule. Lyra claims to be the daughter of the cosmic empress Valdara, ruler of the lost ethereal empire, an empire that supposedly ruled the galaxy before any of our civilizations existed. Laughter erupted from multiple species. The Zilthrani ambassadors. Tentacles writhed with amusement. Humans, always seeking to make themselves the center of ancient mysteries. The ethereal empire is myth, legend, fairy tale. But Dr. Rachel Morgan, the expedition's xenobiologist, stepped forward. Her green eyes blazed with conviction as she held up a second datapad. The genetic markers don't lie. We've compared Lyra's DNA with samples from across the galaxy. There are trace elements in the genetics of every known sentient species that match hers. Every single one. The laughter died. The Vorthak Prime Speaker leaned forward, its crystalline body catching the chamber's light. You're suggesting this child is connected to all of us? I'm suggesting, Rachel replied steadily, that the ethereal empire wasn't a myth, and that somehow humanity has a direct connection to its royal bloodline. Lyra herself sat quietly in the observation gallery, her luminescent patterns pulsing faster as she watched the debate below. She understood more than anyone realized, and she knew that her presence here was no accident. The stars themselves had guided her to the humans for a reason. In the depths of space, ancient monitoring stations began to activate for the first time in millennia. Awakening of the ancient. Protocols the discovery of Lyra sent shockwaves through human space. In the underground laboratories of Lunar Research Station, teams of scientists worked around the clock to understand the implications of her existence. Captain Jake Rodriguez, a veteran of the Outer Rim conflicts, found himself assigned as Lyra's guardian and protector, a job he never expected to want. She's not just genetically compatible with humans, Dr. Morgan explained to the assembled military leadership via hologram. Her cellular structure actually responds to human emotional states. When she's around humans who care about her, her bioluminescent patterns become brighter, more complex. It's as if she's designed to bond with our species. General Patricia Hayes, head of Human Defense Command, frowned at the display. Doctor, are you telling me this girl is some kind of living weapon? Not a weapon, Jake interjected from his position beside Lyra. She's more like a key. Yesterday, she accidentally activated a piece of tech that's been dormant for 3,000 years just by touching it. Lyra looked up from the ancient artifact she'd been examining, a crystalline device found in the ruins of an ancient outpost. Her voice carried a musical quality that made everyone listen more intently. It's not accidental, Captain Rodriguez. The archives remember. They've been waiting for someone with the right ... signature. The crystal in her hands began to glow, projecting holographic star maps that showed the galaxy as it had been eons ago. Vast trade routes connected thousands of worlds under the banner of the ethereal empire. At the center of it all was a world that looked remarkably like Earth, but covered in cities of impossible beauty. My mother's empire, Lyra whispered, her eyes distant with inherited memories. She ruled for 10,000 years, ensuring peace between all species. But something went wrong. A great darkness came from beyond the galactic edge. The hologram shifted, showing fleets of geometric ships unlike anything in recorded history, pouring through what appeared to be tears in space. Itself, the ethereal empire's forces, despite their advanced technology, were being overwhelmed. Dr. Morgan leaned closer to the projection. The Void Seekers, she breathed. They're in our oldest myths, too. Every species has stories about the darkness that came from between the stars. Lyra nodded sadly. Mother scattered her people across the galaxy before making her final stand. She encoded genetic markers and selected species safeguards that would activate if the Void Seekers ever returned. Humans were chosen as the primary guardians because of your unique ability to adapt and survive. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Lyra, are you saying these Void Seekers are coming back? Before she could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Communications Officer Lisa Chun's voice crackled over the intercom. Unknown vessels detected at the edge of the system. They're not matching any known ship configurations. On the main screen, dark angular ships materialized from what looked like tears in space itself. Their hulls seemed to absorb light, making them visible only as moving absences against the stars. As they moved closer, electronics throughout the station began to malfunction. Lyra's bioluminescent patterns suddenly blazed with brilliant light. Her voice changed, carrying an authority that belonged to someone far older. The awakening has begun. The Void Seekers have found us. But this time, humanity will not face them alone. The ancient artifact in her hands shattered, releasing a pulse of energy that spread out into space. Across human space, dormant technologies began to activate, and people with certain genetic markers started experiencing strange dreams of starships and ancient battles. The real war was about to begin. The Empress emerges 3 weeks after the first Void Seeker incursion. Human space had become a battleground unlike anything in recorded history. Admiral Thomas Blake stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, watching through the viewscreen as Earth's orbital defenses engaged the alien invaders. The planet's surface glowed with the activation of ancient defense grids that had lain dormant beneath major cities for millennia. Sir, reported Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos, the Melbourne and the Snow Polo are reporting successful integration with the awakened technologies. Their weapons output has increased by 400%. Blake nodded grimly. Across the human fleet, ships were transforming as dormant systems came online. Crystalline growths emerged from hull plating. Weapons reconfigured themselves into new patterns. And Ship A, is began displaying capabilities they'd never possessed before. In the ship's medical bay, Lyra underwent her own transformation. Her appearance had changed dramatically over the past weeks. She now stood nearly 6 feet tall, her bioluminescent patterns covering most of her body in intricate, constantly shifting designs. Dr. Morgan monitored her vital signs with growing amazement. Her cellular regeneration rate has tripled, Morgan explained to Captain Rodriguez. It's as if her body is remembering what it's supposed to be. The genetic markers aren't just compatibility markers. They're instructions for biological enhancement. Jake watched Lyra through the medical bay window. She no longer looked like the frightened girl they'd found in the escape pod. Power radiated from her in waves that made nearby equipment hum with energy. Is she still ... human compatible? More than ever, Morgan replied. Her neural patterns are synchronizing with human brain activity across the fleet. Reports are coming in from every ship. Crew members are experiencing enhanced reflexes, improved problem-solving abilities, and an almost supernatural understanding of the awakened technologies. Suddenly, the ship shuddered under enemy fire. Blake's voice echoed through the intercom. All hands, prepare for battle stations. The Void Seekers are making their final push toward Earth. Lyra's eyes snapped open, no longer the soft blue of her youth, but blazing with stellar fire. She stood, and the medical equipment around her began to resonate with harmonic frequencies that seemed to sing of ancient victories and cosmic purpose. It's time, she said, her voice carrying the weight of inherited authority. I need to get to the command deck. When Lyra entered the bridge, every human present felt something shift in their consciousness. The awakened technologies throughout the ship responded to her presence, creating a symphony of light and energy that painted the bridge in colors that had no names. Admiral Blake, Lyra said, and her voice carried across the communication network. To every human ship in the battle, I formally claim my birthright as Empress of the Ethereal Empire and Protector of the Galactic Alliance. Do you accept my authority? Blake looked at this young woman who had grown into something magnificent and terrible. Around him, his crew stood straighter, their eyes bright with purpose they'd never felt before. In that moment, he understood what humanity had always been destined to become. Your Imperial Majesty, he said, going down on one knee, the human fleet acknowledges your authority. Across the battle zone, similar scenes played out on every human vessel. As the crews accepted Lyra's rule, the awakened technologies fully integrated with their ships. Weapons that could pierce dimensional barriers came online. Shields that drew power from the cosmic background radiation activated. Navigation systems that could plot courses through folded spacetime began calculating impossible maneuvers. Lyra raised her hand, and every Void Seeker ship in the system suddenly stopped moving. The power that flowed through her connected to every human in the fleet, amplifying their natural abilities and linking them into a unified consciousness of purpose. Today, she announced to her people, the Terran Empire is born. Today, we finish what my mother started 10,000 years ago. Today, we drive the darkness back beyond the edge of forever. The real battle was about to begin. The Terran fleet ascendant, transformation of humanity's fleet, was nothing short of miraculous. Ship after ship underwent metamorphosis as ancient ethereal technology merged with human engineering. The heavy cruiser Phoenix emerged from a chrysalis of crystalline energy, with weapons that could punch holes through dimensional barriers. The destroyer pack led by the Wolverine developed the ability to phase in and out of normal space, striking the Void Seekers from impossible angles. Commander Diana Cross stood on the bridge of the science vessel Prometheus, watching in awe as her ship's sensors evolved beyond their original specifications. Empress, she reported to Lyra across the fleet network, we're detecting massive Void Seeker reinforcements assembling in the Proxima system. It looks like they're preparing for a full invasion of the galaxy. Lyra's presence filled the minds of every human in the fleet. No longer just a voice, she had become a warm, guiding consciousness that enhanced their abilities while preserving their individuality. Through this connection, they could feel her determination and ancient wisdom. "They're not just invading," Lyra explained, her mental voice touched with sadness. "They're fleeing. Something in the void beyond our galaxy has been hunting them. For eons, they consume civilizations not from malice, but from desperation. They need the energy of living worlds to survive." Captain Rodriguez, now commanding the newly transformed battleship Olympus, felt the tactical implications flow through. The fleet consciousness. That's why they always leave scorched worlds behind. They're not trying to conquer, they're trying to survive. "But that doesn't make them any less dangerous," added Admiral Blake from the Defiance. His ship had grown to twice its original size, its hull now incorporating living metal that could repair itself and adapt to different types of attacks. If they're desperate enough to genocide entire civilizations for energy, they won't stop until someone makes them stop. Through their shared awareness, the human fleet could sense the Void Seekers' movements across multiple star systems. The enemy had learned from their initial defeat at Earth and was coordinating a massive assault involving hundreds of ships. But they had underestimated how quickly humanity could adapt. Sergeant First Class Kevin Murphy, now serving as tactical coordinator for the Marine assault teams, reviewed the boarding procedures that had somehow downloaded themselves into his mind. I'm showing we now have the capability to board their vessels during combat. The awakened armor can survive in the void between dimensions." Lyra's approval flowed through the network like warm sunlight. "My mother's empire succeeded because we never fought alone. Every species contributed their unique strengths to the whole. Humanity's gift is adaptation, the ability to learn, change, and overcome any challenge." The fleet began moving toward the Proxima system, but they were no longer traveling through normal space. The awakened navigation systems opened corridors through folded space-time, allowing them to cover light years in minutes. As they traveled, more human ships joined them, vessels from the outer colonies that had undergone their own transformations. Dr. Morgan, now serving as the fleet's xenobiologist and cultural advisor, monitored the awakening process in real time. "The genetic markers are activating in roughly 30% of the human population," she reported. "They're developing enhanced cognitive abilities, improved physical coordination, and most remarkably, the ability to interface directly with ethereal technology. It's not random," Lyra explained as they approached the enemy staging area. "The markers activate in those who possess the psychological traits my mother valued most: courage, adaptability, the willingness to sacrifice for others, and the ability to see beyond the immediate moment to long-term consequences." As the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Proxima Centauri, they found themselves facing an armada that dwarfed anything they'd encountered before. Thousands of Void Seeker vessels filled the space around the star, their dark hulls absorbing the system's light and creating an unnatural twilight. But the humans were no longer the same species that had first ventured into space. They were something new, a fusion of human determination and ethereal wisdom, guided by an empress who carried the memories of a galactic civilization. "All ships," Lyra commanded, her voice carrying the authority of 10,000 years of rule. "Remember what we fight for. Not just Earth, not just humanity, but every living world in this galaxy. The Void Seekers will find that we are not the prey they expected. We are the inheritors of the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known, and we will not yield." The final battle was about to begin. The new galactic order, the Battle of Proxima Centauri, raged for 3 days and nights, though such measurements meant little in the darkness between stars. The human fleet, now calling itself the Terran Imperial Navy, fought with a coordination that seemed impossible. Ships moved in perfect synchronization, their awakened A's sharing tactical data through dimensional channels that the Void Seekers couldn't intercept. Captain Rodriguez led a squadron of transformed destroyers in a flanking maneuver that took them through folded space. Empress were in position behind their main battle line. Whatever they're doing to that star, it's destabilizing the entire system. Through the fleet consciousness, they could all see what the Void Seekers had been building, a massive dimensional gateway anchored to Proxima Centauri itself. The star's energy was being siphoned to power a portal that would allow the rest of their species to escape into this galaxy. They're not invading, Lyra realized, her mental voice filled with a mixture of understanding and determination. They're refugees, but they're willing to destroy every living world in our galaxy to save themselves from whatever's hunting them in the void. Admiral Blake coordinated the main battle line as Void Seeker dreadnoughts emerged from the dimensional gateway. These ships were larger than anything they'd faced before, their hulls crackling with energies that seemed to tear at the fabric of space itself. All ships focus fire on the gateway anchors. If we can collapse that portal while their main fleet is still on the other side. The battle turned into a race against time. Human boarding parties, led by Sergeant Murphy's enhanced Marines, fought their way through Void Seeker vessels to plant dimensional charges. The awakened armor they wore allowed them to survive in spaces where reality itself was unstable, while their enhanced reflexes and tactical awareness let them outfight opponents that had been perfecting warfare for millions of years. Dr. Morgan, coordinating from the fleet's mobile research station, made a breakthrough that changed everything. Empress, I've analyzed the energy signatures from their home dimension. They're not lying about being hunted. There's something out there that feeds on dimensional energy itself, a force that treats entire universes as prey. Lyra felt the weight of decision. Through the fleet consciousness, every human could sense her internal struggle. They were fighting for survival, but they were also facing an enemy that was itself fighting for survival against something even worse. Open a communication channel, Lyra commanded. For the first time in recorded history, humans spoke directly with a Void Seeker command entity. The voice that answered was like the sound of dying stars, ancient, desperate, and filled with cosmic loneliness. Child of the ethereal line, it said, recognizing her through inherited memories. You have awakened. But you cannot stop us. We will not return to the consuming darkness. I'm not asking you to return, Lyra replied, her voice carrying the authority of an empress and the compassion of someone who had grown up among humans. I'm offering you an alternative. Through the fleet network, humans could feel her plan taking shape. Using the awakened technologies, they could modify the dimensional gateway, not to bring the Void Seekers into this galaxy as conquerors, but to establish a refugee camp in empty space between dimensions. A place where the Void Seekers could exist without consuming living worlds, protected from whatever hunted them in the deep void. The battle stopped. Across the system, Void Seeker ships held their fire as their leadership considered this impossible offer. No species had ever proposed cooperation instead of destruction. Why? The entity asked. Because, Lyra replied, that's what my mother would have done. And it's what humans do. We find solutions that everyone else thinks are impossible. The modification took 6 months to complete. Human engineers worked alongside Void Seeker technicians, sharing knowledge and developing technologies that neither species could have created alone. The dimensional refuge became a marvel of cooperative engineering, a pocket universe that could sustain the Void Seekers without requiring them to consume other civilizations. In return, the Void Seekers shared their knowledge of interdimensional travel and deep void navigation. The technologies they provided would allow humanity to explore beyond the galactic edge, to map the spaces between universes, and to defend against threats that existed outside normal reality. standing on the observation deck of her new flagship, the Imperial Palace vessel, Ethereal Dawn. Empress Lyra looked out at the first joint human void seeker station. Around her, the awakened humans of her fleet had become the founding members of a new galactic civilization. "Your Imperial Majesty," Admiral Blake said, joining her at the viewing port, "the Galactic Council has formally recognized the Terran Empire as the successor to the Ethereal Empire. 17 species have requested membership in the new alliance." Lyra smiled, the bioluminescent patterns on her skin pulsing with warm, satisfied light. "Tell them they're all welcome. My mother's empire fell because it tried to fight the darkness alone. This time, we'll face whatever comes together." Through the fleet consciousness, every human could feel her certainty. They were no longer just explorers or colonists. They had become the guardians of a galaxy, inheritors of an ancient legacy, and the founders of an empire that would welcome any species willing to stand against the dark. The stars themselves seemed to sing with approval. As humanity stepped fully into its cosmic destiny,